Hi everyone, today I am with John from Goosehead Insurance and he's going to be filling us all in on Florida insurance. Welcome.
Yeah, Lizzie, thank you so much for having me, for being part of this, and I'm happy to answer any questions and provide my expertise in this space of homeowners insurance here in the state of Florida.
Yes, and let's even start with a little overview of yourself, of how long you've been doing this, the areas you service, and what is your ideal clientele that you help.
My brother and I, we had the agency together. We fall under a franchise umbrella through Goosehead. We're one of the fastest growing, if not the fastest growing franchise in the insurance industry. We're a publicly traded company. We've been around for 20 years and we're valued at about $3.5 billion. So I've been fortunate enough to start this venture with my brother. We've been at it for close to 3 years now. I come from a background of banking in the financial industry, and my brother worked for Geico for about 6 years, and he brought me into the insurance game.
And even when you are first taking on a new client, are there a few common questions or things that you always make a note of, especially from someone who's relocating to Florida? A common question is, insurance is always so high. Why is insurance so much higher than other states?
Yeah, great question. So Florida is a different beast, if you could say. It's the wild, wild west of insurance.
Yes.
And really, when people come from other states and they relocate, it could be a sticker shock, that's for sure. I would say there's a few things to look out for when you do purchase a home. Well, first of all, I think it's always best when you start on the home buying process is to just get preliminary quotes. Get an idea of what the quotes are going to look like, and also, are you in a flood zone? Because prices could be significant, and when you're so far into the buying process and you've signed the contract and you put down monies, and then you're like, whoa, I just discovered that I'm in a flood zone and now my policy premium is $6,000 for the year just on the flood. That doesn't even count for the home. That's something to look out for. But yeah, I mean, if you're in a coastal area and you're along the beach, premiums could be greater as opposed to being in the middle of the state. And it just varies on a case-to-case basis for every home in Florida. That's why I say it's always important to reach out to an insurance expertise and just get some quotes from them. And then that would give you a good idea when you're doing the home shopping. It's what would be the best options for me as the home buyer is what I can say.
Now, in terms of the flood zone, so like us agents are able to tell, to look on the map to say, yes, it is in a flood zone, so your agent should be able to tell you that. But also working with someone, like ideally when my clients are working with me, we also work with John. So when we go and view the properties, we say, hey, here is our list. So before we even go to the properties, we know, hey, these are the estimated quotes. It's in a flood zone, it's not in a flood zone, and here's your flood zone quote. You're able to see that on your end as well.
Exactly right. We have the tools and the resources to determine the flood zone determination for a home. And then we would pass that over to you. We can send you an email with the reports of what we picked up. And not only that, there's something called an elevation certificate. What that is that's a report typically done by an engineer, a civil engineer, and they go out and they look at the property and they determine how elevated the home is from that elevation zone, and that could apply credits to help the buyer save money.
John, so fill us in on, I know for the real estate perspective, location is key. Now, does location make a big factor when you are giving out your quotes, especially, a single family compared to condo?
Yeah, so single family homes or homes that I would like to say are on the first level is significantly different from homes that are above the first level. If you're in a condo and you're on the third floor and above, flood rates could significantly be reduced.
So even if you're in a flood zone, if you are on the fourth floor for a condo, it will not matter.
That's right. That's right. Exactly right. So the rates will significantly reduce. Now, if you're on the first floor, of course, it's pretty, of course, if water seeps all the way to the fourth floor of a building, that's a tsunami.
Right.
So that would, the probability of that ever happening are very small to none. But, once again, if you're on the first floor and you have a single family home, You have an investment property, and you want flood rates, we're happy to provide them. What I can say is that through the National Flood Insurance Program and through FEMA, the maximum allowable amount of insurance is $250,000 to cover the dwelling.
Interesting, that's a good fact.
So even though you have let's say $1 million dwelling, the maximum that we can insure that for flood is $250,000, and that's acceptable to qualify for the loan.
Okay, good to know.
So yes, and of course there's different types of flood policies. There's ones that run under the NFIP, the National Flood Insurance Program, and then there's other private flood policies that you can get where it's greater than $250,000 if you want above what the NFIP is offering.
Okay, and when you're using all of these different acronyms and different names as well, someone that is, whether they're relocating here or buying their first property in Florida, are there specific verbiage that they should become familiar with when they're trying to educate themselves on home insurance as a whole?
Yeah, I would just say just keep it as simple as possible. Am I in a flood zone or am I not in a flood zone?
Okay, that should just be the main common question.
That's
flood
right.
zone, yes or no?
That's right, and we can determine that. If you see an A, because it's determined by letters.
Right.
So if you see an A, AE, AH, then you know you're in a flood zone. If it's an X, XB, which are the most common, then you're not in a flood zone.
Okay.
And once again, we will let you know as the investor, the buyer, whether or not you are in a flood zone.
Mm-hmm. And that's the purpose of why we want to work with John from the very beginning. So we do not wait until we find a property, we're under contract, and then it's, now it's time to start searching for our quotes. That he's with us from the very beginning of, once we get the pre-approval, you get looped in and you get to meet John as well.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And we pride ourselves on speed and service, so we always get those quotes out the same day.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to looking at dwellings, prices differ based on where the location of the home is. Of course, if you're a coastal home as opposed to being in the center of Florida, or if you're a new construction, new build home, is going to vary differently from that of a home that is older. Also what determines prices and premium are the type of build of the home, whether it be a masonry built home, a frame home. We look at all those things. We have a tool where we can calculate the value of the home. We also have a software tool that where we can input information about the dwelling.
I know it's hard to give exact estimates in terms of what you can expect to pay because, again, location is everything. But with your experience, are you able to give an example? Say it's a condo. It's the same, built as one that's inland, 15, 20 miles. Do you have an estimated cost difference of what it would be, of what your insurance would be to be directly on the water compared to more inland?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I would say the number one significant factor for condos would be the age of the condo.
Okay.
Believe it or not. Newer build construction condos is significantly more cost effective, meaning the premium is drastically reduced for new build condos. And when I mean a new build condo, I'm saying 2000, 2001 and newer.
Okay.
That's
good, because people can think of new construction and think, it has to be 2020. And
exactly right. Okay. But being South Florida, being Florida in general, there are a lot of condos from the 60s, the 80s, the 90s, and even beyond that, where rates could be significantly greater. What I can say regarding the condo market is a wind mitigation report. That's where you get the most savings. So any condo, and I would say that's greater than 20 years, I highly recommend a wind mitigation report. Mm-hmm. A wind mitigation report tells us various things that gives the buyer the opportunity to save money. And the things that we look at are such things as is the building a reinforced concrete building? Does it have hurricane impact windows and doors? What year is the roof of the building? Mm-hmm. All those things that allow us to even help you save money. I would say with the wind mitigation report, you're saving anywhere between 30% to about 70% on policy premiums.
Nice.
So and when we do send out quotes, we always advise a wind mitigation report to help the borrower, the buyer save money. And we also, we provide quotes with credits so that they have an idea of how much they can save by obtaining that report.
And in terms of the reports and the inspections, that will occur once we officially go under contract. It's time to schedule our inspection. That's when we're able to know 100% our numbers. We're not able to do the report before the property is even yours under contract. Yes.
Exactly right. Exactly right. So we always advise the reports. And then with homes, with dwelling single-family homes greater than 20 years, it's advisable to obtain a 4-point inspection report. It tells us 4 things. It's unlike the comprehensive report that looks at every little thing of the home. A 4-point just tells us 4 things. They look at the electrical, the HVAC, the roof, and the plumbing. All 4 need to be in good order in order to qualify. Exactly right. And these are for homes that are greater than 20 years old.
Okay.
Now, if, for example, there are deficiencies to the home, our agency, we're appointed with surplus lines carriers. So in the event that you cannot, the home may not qualify for a standard homeowner's insurance policy, we could look at surplus lines carriers. And that would help, the borrower or the buyer close on the home, and then after repairs are made, then we can get them with a standard policy. We've done that many times.
That makes sense. And even in terms of what the client has access to, so one of our client success stories is my previous client. He was searching on his own trying to find policies that met a certain threshold, and all of it that for the user facing was showing so much more. How are you able to secure the deals that you're able to get? Because more times than not, the policies he's able to secure, you're not able to see on your end when you do a Google search. Can you explain how you're able to kind of find the best policy that's not even really online?
Great question. So through Goosehead, we have something called the Aviator, and it's a software tool that we have. So Goosehead is more of a technology company.
Okay.
We're really changing the game in terms of how insurance is run. First of all, we have a service team behind us. We have about 200 plus service agents out of Fort Worth, Texas. They do all the servicing on the back end for all of our policyholders. That's why we're able to get quotes out the same day for you. Get those preliminary quotes. So we work on speed. Exactly right. So when we look at these homes, we use that software tool and we can determine what companies are most competitive for those homes in those counties and zip codes. And once again, we take into consideration the square footage of the home, how old is the home, where is it located, all these things, we put it into that software tool, and it gives us back the carriers. And it gives us the carriers in from ascending to descending orders in terms of the best premium, the best the rate that your borrower, your buyer is going to get, all the way to the greatest. And we send those options in an email, so you can see what companies are most competitive. It's really a fascinating tool that we have. I mean, it's something that we've had before. And then that's how you can be assured that you're getting the most competitive policy that's out there for your home.
And you would say it's common that the clients they don't even know the policy exists when they do the Google search on their own, that a lot of times it comes internally, or they just don't have the software to be able to run how you run.
So that's right. So that software tool is not out for the public. It's virtually impossible if I'm a buyer to know what company is going to be the best for me for that particular dwelling, condo. That's where you come to someone like myself, where I can determine what companies are going to be the most competitive because I have that software tool. And on top of that, using that software tool, it's very cumbersome. I mean, there's so many things that on the back end that we look at for a particular dwelling or condo be recognizable to the average person when we input information regarding the dwelling. There's more things in terms of a screen enclosure, your pool, your square footage, what kind of flooring do you have? Are you a custom build, semi-custom? We look what kind of roof you have. Is it a hip roof, gable roof? All those things that we can determine to really, number one, insure your home adequately and get you the proper coverage, but number two, getting you the most competitive company.
Because the other, your competitors are not utilizing this because if, for example, again, our past client is the other, home insurance policyholder sent over their quotes, but again, he was able to beat it by quite a landslide to make the deal go through. So no one else uses the technology that you guys use, is that?
That's correct. The aviator tool that we have is proprietary to Goosehead.
Okay.
Okay, this is why we've gone from a 20-year company that's now valued at close to $4 billion. And that's because we have a tool as a company, company-wide, that is just makes us different.
Game changer.
It's really exactly right. And ultimately it's doing right by the buyer. And I can assure you, our software tool is as accurate as it comes.
It's authentic. It's not shady. It's not. Exactly, you're not going to a third party to find. Well, maybe able to ensure it's.
Exactly right.
Yes.
Exactly right.
Mm-hmm.
And I wish I had a way of maybe even in the future we could showcase how that software tool works and how we input the information regarding a particular dwelling and able to find out those most competitive companies for your buyers.
Hey John, fill us in terms of the recent years. It's been a huge topic of conversation of insurance in Florida. It has increased tremendously, so much so that some people are having to sell because they cannot afford their new policy with the mortgage payment. What happened?
This didn't start yesterday. Florida rates have gone significantly higher, I would say, over the last decade.
Mm-hmm.
And that's due to a few reasons. I hate to say it, but South Florida in particular has a lot of fraud. Yep. And as a result of that, that's caused premiums to significantly go higher. And then on top of that, we're just as susceptible to hurricanes and storms. So that's another reason why rates are so great. But what I can say is there's a lot of good news. About a year and a half ago or so, there's legislation that passed that there were 2 laws that were implemented of competition starting to come back in Florida.
Nice.
And more carriers coming back and premiums actually starting to reduce.
Okay, good news.
And there was 2 things that they passed: assignment of benefits and one-way attorney fees.
Okay.
And as a result of these new law changes, we're starting to really see competition come back. We're starting to not only are we seeing competition come back, but we're seeing a lot of carriers start coming to the state again.
Because they all left Florida, so there were only a few people that were able to offer the insurance,
exactly right.
And they were all skyrocket through the roof because there were only a few competitors to choose from.
Correct. And when you don't have competition, then these companies can charge whatever they want.
Yep. And yes.
And so now that competition is really coming back, we're starting to see premiums start to normalize and start to come down. And since this law was implemented just a year and a half ago or so, we think over the next year and a half or so, premiums are going to continue to drastically reduce. The reason why it's taking such a long time for them to reduce is because of reinsurance companies. Reinsurance companies have to catch up to the homeowners insurance market. Not to get too specific, what I can say is that we feel really optimistic that rates are going to continue dropping and that more competition is coming to the state of Florida.
Okay, awesome. So good news for South Florida.
Absolutely.
Woo-hoo!
Absolutely. It could help save someone money on their homeowners insurance.
And they're appreciative of it as well.
Absolutely. And that's our job. That's the way that I look at it. Is like, how can I help the buyer? How can I help somebody save money on their homeowners insurance policy?
A couple $100 definitely goes a long way each month.
Absolutely.
Even in terms of when you issue a policy, is it only good for 1 year? Or are you able to lock it in for a few years to get a better rate? How does that work in terms of, all right, we're locking in your rate, but who knows if it's going to go higher or lower?
That's a great question. So policies for homeowners insurance, they last for a year. Okay. That's a standard homeowners insurance policy, 1 year. However, it's a free market. You have the opportunity midway through your policy is, hey, I feel like maybe I'm paying too much. Let me look at other options. And you have the choice as the homeowner or as the policyholder to switch out of that company and go with another company.
But you can never lock it in to go longer than a year.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct. So after the year, and I always advise, you always want to check on your policy 2 months to a month before your policy renews.
Okay, kind of like
Okay.
starting the home buying process a few months
That's
out.
exactly right.
Right.
So you're looking at your renewal. You're seeing, okay, I have an increase on my policy premium, or maybe a reduction for whatever reason. Then that's when my advice is you have an agent like myself review your declarations page of your policy, and then we can determine, hey, we can help you save money here.
Once your rate is locked in with your policy for that year, it cannot change.
It cannot change for that year.
You can have
It's
that
a
peace of
contract.
mind to know at least for the year, this is your set price.
That's exactly right.
Mhm.
That's exactly right. They cannot change the premium during that policy period.
Okay, and even for especially of all the different clientele that you work with, do you get any common questions that maybe once they're under contract, they have questions about for the home insurance, or is everything pretty straightforward? It's either in a flood insurance, yes or no, and here's your cost.
Well, yes. So I actually like to break down the homeowner's insurance policy because there are coverages that a lot of consumers are not aware of.
Right.
And they go by letters.
Okay.
A, B, C, D, all the way to E and F, where one, you want to make sure, and this is the most important coverage, is your dwelling. It's the actual structure. Are you covering your structure adequately?
Yes.
In the event of a fire, lightning, hurricane, falling object, do you have enough insurance to bring your home back to the way that it was before?
Mm-hmm.
That's number one. Then secondly, on a homeowner's insurance policies, other structures, which is anything that's not attached to the home, and then all the way to personal property, the stuff inside your home, such as furniture, electronics, clothing. You want to have that insured as well, because of course it's expensive to replace. And then you have liability coverage, which is important if you have guests over, or you have family, friends, and either they fall or injure themselves, and you're deemed negligent, they can come after you. And that's another part of a policy that's contagious to have to protect yourself. And then one important coverage is called loss of use. Not to get too specific, but we had policyholders that were unfortunately impacted by Hurricane Ian.
Okay.
And one thing you don't think about is, where am I going to live when this happens? How am I going to continue paying my mortgage? And also being able to stay at a hotel or an Airbnb. So you actually have something in your policy called loss of use.
Nice.
Coverage D of your policy. And essentially what that means is that in the event that your home is uninhabitable and there's repairs and you have contractors in there, it gives you a place to stay, to live, pays for your lodging expenses and food expenses while your home is being repaired. And that was significant because that helped a lot of those impacted Hurricane Ian victims have a place to stay, so they can continue with their lives and continue making their monthly mortgage payments.
Mm-hmm. So big picture, yes, 100%.
So
policy is in depth, but however, that's why
Exactly.
they work with you so that you're able to outline everything.
Correct.
That's what I specifically like about John is he does not just tell you, hey, here's the policy, you pick it. It's explaining this is the price difference and this is what's offered to allow you to make the best decision, because oftentimes you just see the policy with the price, but you don't really see all of the ins and outs, and even those small things like you just said, hey, it should have this already in it.
Correct.
To have that eye.
Exactly right. Or even if you have a screen enclosure at your pool. Many people don't realize that that's not covered under homeowner's policy, and maybe you want to get an endorsement to cover your screen enclosure for the pool in the backyard. So all those things that it's so important to speak to your agent about. And a lot of the times when you speak with your agent, as a consumer, is that cliche saying where it's you don't know what you don't know. And so you allow us to, I think the best thing to do is, especially if you're having a conversation with your agent, is, hey, can you please explain to me what my policy covers?
Guide you and educate you.
Exactly
Our goal is when you're at the closing table that you understand how we got there, that you're just not there signing papers saying, how did I get here? That you know from A to Z what happened, what policy, which property, all of the good info.
Exactly right.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly right.
And how can people find you for when they are interested in wanting to, proceed with you? Just Google Goosehead.com.
Oh yeah, great question. So we are on Google as Jonathan and Jared Krosley, Goosehead. Our catchphrase is Goosehead Brothers because we are brothers and we run the agency together.
Love that.
We also are on Instagram as the Goosehead Brothers, and my direct phone number is 561-453-3958. Pride ourselves once again on speed and service and options for the clients. That's
And specifically in South Florida or all over as well?
just in Florida, the entire state. And the great thing about Goosehead is if, for example, since we're a nationwide company, we can actually put you into contact with another agent in another state, so that therefore you don't have to. You could feel comfortable going with a company like Goosehead
that uses the same software.
That uses the same Aviator software.
So my Chicagoans, you still are able to have a resource. And thank you so much for joining. It was lovely having you on, and lots of good insight that you shared. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lizzie.